Yes.
Thank you so much for this. You answered part of what I was going to ask in your last question. So,
Alhamdulillah.
Yeah. The question I want to have is there a definition for what an Arab is? One, and then second, is there a color component that's attached to that? Like within the African American community, we had certain stratifications, and one was passing the brown paper bag test. So that's the first part. The second part has to do with for Africans or Negroes, and this is intended to be partly provocative, but let's say, take for example, a critique of the Maliki school. Would given some of the hadiths that are contained therein, place these African Muslims of today, me included, in the place of reduced status or second-class citizenship or some other form of captivity?
Yeah, well, the first issue about is there a definition of Arabs? Yeah, I mean, you find Ibn Taymiyyah actually offers a definition for the Arab. He says an Arab is anyone whose parents are Arab, they speak the Arabic language, and they originate from the Arabian Peninsula, pretty much. Three issues. And so what fundamentally means, if we accept that definition as the definition of an original Arab, then it would mean that any Arab today outside of the Arabian Peninsula is not a true Arab, or let's say it was not an original Arab. And that would mean, Iraq, it would mean, Philistine, it would mean Syria, it would mean all of North Africa, right? That all of those countries which are Arabs today, they became Arabs, which is really interesting because the one thing about cultural races is that it's easier for you to become one of the people, you see, because it's a cultural-based race. So once, you have children, your children, they grow up and, they speak Arabic, hey, well, you're one of them, right? If you're culturally that, or you intermarry with someone and then they forget where you originally came from, then that's what you become. And with regard to, again, colors, the Ibn Imam al-Nawawi, Ibn Athir, Ibn Manzur, and Lisan al-Arab, so many different scholars, when they describe the Arabs, they say Ghalib al-Alwan Arab al-Udma wa Sumar wa-Uzma, that the predominant colors amongst the Arabs is light and dark brown, and that's what originally they were. But the fact that we find that the stereotypical Arab today is not a brown person, has a lot to do with history and has to do with the evolution of the Arab image, because of a lot of the more lighter skinned people entering into Arabness. The other question was related to, like, you said something about black and something that in it, about those hadiths that may, or things from the Maliki school may place them in a second-class citizenship status. This is one issue large that I'm dealing with regard to the law, which in the area of marriage, where this particular distinction was made between what we call the Diniya and the Sharifa, or the ignoble and the noble woman, and so then the black woman just happened to be one of a list of women, so I want to be clear about that too. I'm not saying that it's only a reference to the black woman, but I did want to highlight that when many of these scholars speak about the black woman as falling under this category, that they highlight her blackness as being the basis of her unattractiveness, rather than she's poor, or she's, you understand, like they do with the other types of, or she was a former slave, like, with these other women. So basically what it does is it places her at a disadvantage in that that her own clansmen are not able to protect her. So a man comes up and says, I'm going to marry you. And he says, oh, okay, well, nobody else seemed like they're interested, say, hey, okay, no problem. But her clansmen, they decide, well, no, we don't want you to marry that guy. That guy is a crook or this or that. And he tells her the guy wants to marry her. And actually, this is a real true story. I know, but I have some stories like this. This actually happened 20th century. You know, it's like, oh, well, in the Maliki school, you don't need your dad's permission anyway, right? Because, you know, and actually tell the girl, you know, and actually know of a situation where this actually happened, you know, where a brother who called himself Maliki wanted to marry an African-American sister and justified her ignoring her father with a quoting from the Maliki sources, right? So I don't know what happened with that situation, but it was definitely brought to my attention. So it does place them at somewhat of a disadvantage. It's somewhat of an institutionalized type of disadvantage which is there, because if you're a noblewoman, Sharifa, then you don't have the same type of freedom, you know, as the ignoble woman. You know, and that was a time when the more freedom you had, the less value you had. If you were valuable, then your freedom was limited. We had to protect you, right? Because you're valuable. You know, if you have more freedom, oh, whatever, you know. You understand? You know, it's like a stray camel or something like that. You know, it's hey, well, that was the attitude of people. So that's there, and of course there's some hadiths which are definitely problematic, and you know, hopefully you read them once I publish the dissertation, you know. But I think it's been. I don't want to keep us here all night because you know I think I could technically, you know. But inshallah, yes, sir.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.
So you talked a little bit about the subjugation. I think you said the subjugation